Running through the dark cave, the boy speeds up, trying to catch up with the blonde girl who loomed before him in the darkness. Reaching out, she again eludes him, but with a swift jerk, the guy grabs her waistband and, losing his balance, collapses to the ground, hovering over her. They both try to catch their breath and immediately he asks where she is going, to which she replies to Baam. She is going to conquer the tower, for that is the only way for them to escape. The girl is very worried and asks for the young man's forgiveness. She cannot stay here any longer. It is too much for her. Looking into each other's eyes and wrapping her arms around his head, she asks Baam that he not interfere with her rebirth and just forget about her. A bright light enveloped Rachel in front of the despairing boy, consuming her. Closing her eyes, she hears his words. He asks her to come to her senses. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, he gives her his word that he will find her, with a pleading look in his eyes. The doors begin to creak and close, and Rachel is gone. Hearing his words as if from afar, the boy opens his eyes, reaching up. Puzzled, he tries to figure out exactly where he is, not noticing that he is being watched. There are all kinds of drawings everywhere, but he is abruptly distracted by a bright pink light that was coming from somewhere above. Hearing a noise behind him and the sound of someone's footsteps, Baam turned around and noticed a faceless creature with a sort of rod in his hand, who said no one had come to see them in a long time. The boy was frightened and swung his hatchet and ordered the creature to identify himself, to which he replied that he would not hurt him. He asked what had brought the man into the tower. Baam was very surprised. Is he in the tower? Continuing to spin his pole, the creature calls Hedden, the keeper of the lower floor, and asks the hero's name. The boy replies that he was given the name 25th Baam at birth, and Hedden says he will call him just Baam for short. Reflecting on what a delicious name the hero has, the keeper asks what he is doing here. Remembering his original purpose, Baam asked if Hedden had seen the blonde he was stalking here. The monster, scratching his chin, began to ponder the blonde. Meanwhile, the hero begs him to tell him where she is. He must find her. After pondering for a while, Hedden says that the answer lies at the top of the tower and there's nothing else he can say. Pointing to the top of the tower, the hero's gaze is also directed to it. This is his goal. Power, glory, wisdom, knowledge, magic, all can be found at the top. But it's not all that easy. The path will be extremely dangerous and long. But Baam made the decision with unwavering determination. If he had a chance to see her, he would do anything. There was a steely gleam in his eyes. Approving his confidence, the keeper said he must first test him. If he passed the test, he was worthy to go on, which surprised the lad. Hovering before him, the faceless man continued to explain. The trials of the keepers will be on every floor, and it is the keepers who set the tasks. The higher, the harder. So, let his first test come, Hedden announced. And the roar of the monster rumbled through the hall. The first task is called a ball. Pointing to the black ball flying in the air, the monster continued. The essence of the easiest task is to come into the cage to the monster, passing or destroying it, burst the ball. The test will be scored. Stammering with fear, the hero asks if the creature in the cage is a monster and receives an affirming answer. This creature lives in the waters of the tower, usually docile. But now, it hasn't been fed for a month and is in its mating season, which only excites it. Powdered with fear, the boy has no words, which Hedden notices, teasing him and laughing at his cowardice. He says he won't go any further until the balloon bursts, which means he will never see Rachel again. Baam ponders. Will he never see Rachel again? Will that be the end of it? Like hell it will. He won't give up. Meanwhile, the keeper thinks out loud. How scared that little girl must be. Maybe she's already been killed, kidnapped, and there's no chance for salvation. He advises the hero to be realistic. He has almost no chance to burst the balloon. After all, this monster eel is very nimble in these waters, and the guy has no chance, so it will be better for him to forget her. After looking at his weapon, the hero runs past the creature and goes to the portal for the first test, which surprises and makes the keeper laugh, who looks back at him and wishes him good luck. The boy hurries after the girl coming down the steps and shouts to her, asking Mistress Yuri to stop. What do you get by going down to the lower floors? He rushes after the girl. He asks her to say something and Yuri does not stop, saying that the illegal on the first floor of the tower, and he was able to get here himself, which did not weakly surprise the guy. An illegal got into the tower. That's unbelievable. Confirming that it was unbelievable, Yuri told Evan that right now, the man must be on the first floor, next to Hedden, and the guy was frightened that Mistress Yuri was going to see the ordeal. She confirmed his hunch as she continued to run up staircase after staircase and began to tease Evan's fear, telling him it was going to be fun. Watching from the top floor, Evan asks Yuri what. Hedden doesn't notice them. The girl doesn't listen to him, and they both find a glimpse of the kid, start assessing him. She is disappointed. After all, she was expecting some kind of monster like Yurik Mizuno. Asking Evan to evaluate him and the guy's skills, Yuri is even more disappointed. In the guy's opinion, Illegal has no divine power. He's not like other races. Yes, he's a simple guy. Hearing that the guy is an ordinary person, the girl is surprised and frustrated. She had hoped for something special, because, after all the past tower hitmen were unique in nature and created havoc, and she was sure that he would not pass even the first test. However, it turned out that Hedden gave the kid a task that is usually given after the 20th floor, to which the girl offered to help him. She's interested in him, and she expects Baam to have the same kind of chaos that past chosen towers have had. Evan said that they don't need chaos, and in general, the guy won't pass the first mission, he'll just chicken out. To which the girl said that the guy had already run ahead, which really surprised her friend herself enthusiastically. She wasn't wrong. Asking Evan to wait, she ran forward, not listening to his objections, and jumped down, asking him not to worry. The boy replied with a little indignation that he was worried about himself, not her. Baam ran forward to the task at hand, but he is distracted by a loud cry from above, ordering him to stop, and raising his eyes to the ceiling, he sees a shadow growing. He realizes it is a foot, which flies right into his face. He falls to the ground and a girl lands in front of him doing somersaults. Yuri shakes it off and turns to the newcomer, asking if he wants to die just by coming here. Not getting an answer from him, the black-haired beauty asks why he is silent, but she understands the reason herself and asks if he understands her speech. Meanwhile, Baam really didn't understand what she was saying and was just trying to figure out what this woman wanted from him. Turning to Hedden, she asked him if the caretaker had given the newcomer a watch. He replied somewhat evasively that he had apparently forgotten and immediately faced Yuri's haughty gaze. How could he, the oldest overseer of the tower, forget such an important thing? The girl turned around and called out across the hall to Evan, who continued to hide above, hoping that he would not be affected by this whole murky situation. Jumping down, he immediately began to make nice with Hedden, but his companion interrupted him, explaining that Hedden had forgotten to give the newcomer a watch, and Evan just happened to have a spare. After rummaging through his pockets for a while, he finds a class watch and hands it to Baam, saying he simply doesn't have any others. Not understanding their speech, the guy reaches out a little stunned and touches the metal ball. As it flashes, the shell disintegrates and whirls around the room, escorted by Baam's gaze. The orb went almost completely dark, and he abruptly began to understand the speech of the two men who had appeared out of nowhere. Listening to their questions, he asked if the orb had helped him with the language barrier, to which he received confirmation and was amazed at his new abilities. The two strangers introduced themselves as Yuri and Evan Edrock, rank escorts. Evan explained that the watch had a bunch of different functions, and one of them was to overcome the language barrier. He asked Baam to give the orb the command invisible mode. As soon as he said it, the balloon disappeared and the newcomer started looking for it. It turned out that the balloon was simply invisible. You just have to say visible mode to make it visible. Meanwhile, Yuri asks Hedden if the orb is too brutal for the newcomer, albeit an illegitimate participant, to which he receives the answer that such tasks, on the contrary, have always been given to illegals, according to their status and power. They are special, after all. Taking them away from the argument a bit, Baam asks, why do they call it illegal all the time? The legitimate is someone who was able to get into the tower himself, was not chosen to pass it. As a rule, such people made unbelievable chaos and commotion. Pointing at the hero, Yuri declares that he is a wimp, no strength at all, and tells Hedden to reset the difficulty level. After a little thought, the keeper suggests that the rules be changed slightly, and the princess can help the hero if she agrees to give him a rank weapon to pass the tower. More specifically, the Black March. This is against the rules, but would make exceptions and give Yuri a chance to help him. By planting a seed of doubt in her heart, it is the only option he offers. The Guardian knows what this weapon is and what it can do, believing that the girl will refuse and everything will remain as it was. However, she agreed, startling everyone and asking Baam his name, asking if he wants to get to the top. Finding out he's looking for a man, she's encouraged and a little teased. She realizes the guy isn't going to give up, which only makes her happy. Pulling her arsenal out of thin air, she hands the kid a black sword called the Black Mart, saying she'll lend him the sword for a while. Hedden is surprised, but shows no initiative to stop her, which is not the case with Evan. Edrock urges her to come to her senses. If the king finds out, a ruinous death awaits them. After all, you can't just give the Black Mart to the first person you meet. Baam says he can manage on his own. He does not want to get into trouble, but Yuri stops him. You want to climb the tower, don't you? After hesitating for a few seconds, he grips the hilt of his sword. According to her, even with that sword, the chances are slim. It's not the weapon that matters, it's who wields it. All the while, she averts her gaze and doesn't make eye contact with him, continuing to explain about the peculiarities of the blade. It practically has a will of its own. If the boy doesn't change his mind, she will lend him the sword. Baam was surprised by her help and promised that he would return it to her. Black Mart is in good hands. Evan asks again, looking at the princess, why did you help him? Gave it away. Even such a powerful weapon. Suddenly, a hunch hits him. Have you fallen in love with Yuri? Or do you expect him to bring change to the tower? But she doesn't have such hopes, she just likes him. Baam remembers her, the very girl who taught him how to talk, told him how the outside world works, and from whom he learned human warmth. When he sat in total darkness and loneliness, it was she who helped him, lighted up his soul with a billion bright stars and gave meaning to his life. Hearing a growl, the boy closes his eyes as something flies in his direction and opens them again, eyes full of confidence. Remembering Yuri's words about his possible death, he only clutches his blade harder. After all, there are worse things than death. Baam stands, looking at the eel, with a black ball looming behind him and just keeping eye contact with the monster. Yuri asks Evan about the guy's chances of passing the monster. The prognosis is disappointing. Evan knows there is only one way to pass the test. The eel is much stronger than this guy, and there is no way to avoid the battle. The monster has tremendous speed in the water. Only if Baam will let the eel swallow him whole, he can unharmed get into the belly and wound the monster from the inside, thus stunting him. While the creature is coming to its senses, you must swim past it and burst the balloon. The only option, and Evan is sad that he can't give the illicit a clue. Baam watches his opponent, not in the least bit afraid, and Evan continues to ponder further. In his opinion, this guy is going to lose. That's why he didn't help him with a clue before the challenge, so that the guy himself would realize that he can't do it and then the princess would save him, if he would not be too heroic. The eel swam right over Baam and Evan, and Yuri shouted for him to run. Is he numb with fear? No, he was acting on his own. The realization dawned on Evan. He knew how to get through this task. At that moment, Baam was swallowed by an eel. Yuri was terrified. Was he eaten? We must save him. She rushed to the rescue, but was intercepted by a friend, who shouted to her that the illegitimate had found a way out, from which she fell out. Looking at him like he was crazy, she tried to reason with Evan. After all, not serving himself on a saucer is the way out in this ordeal. However, upon complying with his request to just watch, the princess was astonished. Out of the monster's mouth, the sword was stained with blood. It pierced him, met the danger face to face. It takes strong determination, willpower, and nerve, Edrock pointed out. Yuri has learned from Hedden that this is one of the meanings of this test, to show those qualities in battle, but it doesn't come easily. Baam bypasses the monster and runs up to the ball, assessing the situation with his determined gaze. After all, he is doing it for a man whose feelings for him have superseded fear, pain, and indecision. Smiling contentedly, Yuri and Evan watch his triumph. As he touches the black marked ball and presses on, the hero realizes that nothing is happening. Neither does Yuri. She aggressively asks Hedden why the balloon hasn't burst. After all, it was pierced with such a weapon. To which, the keeper smilingly replies that the balloon is apparently strong. He has no doubts. Death has come illegally.